Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
As promised, here's a bonus episode of Apple Slice in the VOX PIP format, where I ask the question, what's your most recent Apple purchase? So within this, I've set a few guidelines. The purchase has to be a new release that came out within the last 12 months, and they have to each be different products running a different operating system. So before I start, if you're into Nintendo, definitely check out a cool Australian podcast called The House of Mario. I've really been enjoying it, and the hosts, Drew and Bryce, are genuine, down-to-earth guys. So Drew himself actually is also an Apple Slice listener, so helping a buddy out there, and you can listen to them by searching The House of Mario in your podcast player. Okay, my first guest, Sad C the Clown, also known as Cody Hawkes, is here to talk about his iPad, the one that came out in March, and the Apple Pencil. He does a lot of illustration work, so it's been coming from that perspective. Unfortunately, when I set up the conversation, we're both sitting in a room together, sharing the mic, so the audio isn't quite as good as I'd like, but please bear with it, the conversation is still good. So, here you go, here's Cody. Hey everyone, I'm sitting here with my good mate Cody, who actually appeared on an episode of Apple Slice a long time ago, within our first year, and he is back to talk about his experience with the 2018 iPad, the one that came out in March, and the Apple Pencil, which he purchased recently. So you may know him online as Sad C the Clown. That is his moniker for all his illustration work. But yeah, Cody / Sad C, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, cool. So we're just sitting here in your lair, all sorts of figurines and computers and drawing tablets and everything. So yeah, I'm kind of jealous of this room.
Got a few goodies in here.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so part of this bonus episode is I'm basically just getting feedback from people of stuff they've purchased recently that's actually come out within the last year, and their hands-on experience with it, because that's ultimately, you can take what you can take from Apple's marketing, but really it's the hands-on experience that matters the most. So, first off the bat, what was your sort of illustration setup before, and what kind of hardware did you have, and what programs did you use for your drawing?
Yeah, okay. So originally I started using the just sort of like a standard Wacom tablet. I'm not sure what you called those ones without the screen, on an iMac. So I'm using, what size iMac have I got there? Something?
21.5. So
I've got the 21.5 iMac, and then I'm using a Wacom Cintiq is what I was using. It was the Wacom Cintiq 12WX, which is a 12-inch screen. Pretty well. Oh, and so the Adobe Suite. So I'm only using Photoshop.
Yep.
Originally used to use Illustrator, but once I got the Cintiq, then sort of transferred over to drawing in Photoshop mainly.
Okay, but did you begin with actually any pencil and paper or anything like that?
Yeah. So growing up, obviously, it was all pencil and paper, but then slowly I've transitioned to not really doing any pencil and paper now. So I used to sort of originally sketch it out, scan it in, then do your Wacom sort of work to it. Once I got the Cintiq, you just draw straight to the screen.
So even beforehand, when you would post photos of you doing the black line work over the kind of sketchier line work, was that stuff sketched out on the Wacom first?
Yeah. Generally I do it on Wacom, choose a lighter colour, then fade it back.
Okay, I'd always assumed that was a scan.
No, all digital now. I haven't drawn on pencil for ages on paper.
Well, you've certainly embraced it, and it's cool to hear that you've been working your way up to it from the... as cool as all the stuff is, there still is nothing like actually drawing straight on a piece of paper, but it is so much more convenient to be able to erase it.
I feel like I'm getting worse at that. I'm getting worse at the pencil thing.
The pencil thing, it sounds like it was
bad. I used to draw with pencils.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid.
I was a pencil addict. Okay, so that's cool. And you've recently switched over to an iPad and Apple Pencil. So had you actually been eyeing that off for a while? Because I remember at least a year ago you were sort of talking about it.
Ages, yeah. Well, I've wanted the Apple Pencil for a long time, but then someone at my work got I'm not sure what the largest iPad Pro was.
Yeah, the 12.9.
So the 12.9,
Yep.
she got one of those, the pencil, and let me have like a tiny go in a lunch break, and sold from there. But the price has just always been far too high for me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when they announced this new iPad, or when you told me.
Yes, yeah.
that this had Apple Pencil support.
I actually mentioned that in a recent episode. I said how, like Nick and I were talking about the stuff that come out this year, and I said it was because you hadn't actually realised that they had introduced that. Because it was actually part of the pencil support announcement and then the update. So these iPads that we both have now. It was at an event held at a school.
Wow.
Yeah, so the whole thing is geared around education and stuff. So it's kind of like, they had all stuff for the teachers and the kids, and they actually released this kind of like chunkier Logitech thing called Crayon, which is sort of like a cheaper, sturdier kind of alternative, just because, parents aren't going to want to be shelling out for kids losing pencils all the time, right?
Okay.
So, so that is kind of like how they've changed the game in the sense of, I think they needed something. They had certain features in the iPad Pro when they first released it, the 12.9, aside from the physical size, and power, they needed something else to kind of at least draw the pros to want to buy up at that level. And then that was Apple Pencil. But then the whole time people have been like, well, I don't want to have to buy something that's almost twice as much or over twice as much in cost, And so this has really kind of opened that gate. But in doing that, that's then, like the current iPad Pros, they have a whole host of advantages over a standard iPad, but stuff that only kind of really professionals and stuff would appreciate. So being able to like run certain apps that would push like beyond the capabilities of any sort of other tablets. And stuff like the high refresh rate, so the scrolling is extra smooth, and then the True Tone display, so it adjusts the display temperature and all that sort of thing. So that's stuff that most people, especially a parent buying for their kid, they're like, well, I'm going to notice that, then I'm going to appreciate it. So that was the big difference between the two. But then by bringing the pencil to here, it's closed that gap, and so a lot of people are kind of still at that point where they're like, well, they can't really justify the fact that they've paid twice as much. So in saying that, this is leading us up to the September event, which we always see new iPhones, expecting redesigned iPad Pro, like full thin uniform bezel around the side, Face ID, unlock, etc., that sort of stuff.
Yeah, right.
As a way to further widen that gap.
The Pro that she has is awesome, but just for me, this is actually the first iPad I've personally owned. Like, we've got one in our family, but it's not really mine, so I don't use it for my own things. So when I think her setup came to like 1800 or something like that. My iMac itself's getting dated, so I just couldn't justify it.
Yes.
Because if I'm going to spend that much money, I'm probably better off upgrading my actual computer.
Yeah.
So this is almost like a bit of a gateway
drug.
Gateway.
We've made like second like drug reference already.
I was like, no, do I say that? Because there is always that thing. I knew I would use it, but when it's kind of like, when it's that sort of money, am I going to get it? Think I'm going to use it a lot, and then I could have just got a normal iPad because I'm not using it for the potential of the Pro. Well, now at least, if I find I'm using this a lot, it's... And I
guess the idea is that you're still, like, certainly from the work that you've produced so far, now that you have this set up, which is incredible, by the way, you're kind of going to achieve the same result. And, like, basically the difference between you having this and the current iPad Pro really is... You're working in a drawing program that's running perfectly fine on this one, and so you probably wouldn't notice much of the difference anyway, because these sort of apps aren't really using the full capabilities of an iPad Pro.
Yeah, and even my style is not like it's pushing the limits of any. It's just like cartoon work sort of.
Yeah, so you don't have like hundreds of layers or anything like that. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of apps, then, what did you end up going with, and so did you actually get time to research much, or I know that you're talking about taking advice from other people using iPads? Yeah,
I've pretty well gone with Procreate. I haven't actually tried anything else or really looked at anything else, to be honest, because the girl at work got one. I had one turn on that, and it seemed great.
Yep.
My boss at work has one, and he brought it in, it's got to be 2 years ago now, and just showed me it. And it looks like it does everything that I need to do.
Yes.
Pretty well all that I've been doing on Photoshop, this does it and almost simpler, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Photoshop's probably it is a far more powerful program, but this just seems to make it simple.
And so, only because I'm actually I've certainly heard of Procreate, and I know a lot of people that use it, but I haven't used it myself. So is that actually a raster or vector program?
Raster, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you can do vector work in it.
Yeah.
No, and I'm still only scratching the surface as well, really. I've set it up how I used to work in Photoshop, so I haven't even gone into your fancy brushes. Like some of the brushes look crazy, like watercolors and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Because I certainly think that your style and then the ones I've been doing definitely suit the vector format, because we're using like flat color and all sorts of stuff, and the cartoony sort of line work. So that's why I've gone with Adobe Illustrator Draw.
So yours are all in Illustrator, aren't they?
Yeah, so they've got. So the thing is that Adobe currently with iOS apps, they've got them. You've got your main programs on desktop, and then they've broken it up into separate apps. So some people do or don't like that. I know for the Photoshop side of things, that's annoying because they don't have like a proper all-in-one Photoshop. But they did announce that they're doing that. It's coming out next year. Which is something people wanted for so long. So in that instance, when I had my 10.5 inch iPad Pro, I was using. There's a company called Affinity, and there's Affinity Photo.
Well, that was one I did look into. Before I had it, I was talking to the girl when she was deciding about Procreate. Oh, so I did have a little look with her then. But that was a while ago, and we did see that one.
Yeah, so in terms of actual, like, Photoshop style, editing, and all that sort of stuff, like, that is literally the closest to an equivalent of a fully fledged Photoshop on iPad, and that's why they used it in the demonstrations for the last iPad Pro announcement. Because they're saying... the computational power that's needed to apply this warp effect or whatever, and then they were just running the pencil all across the screen and showed that it was just generating that warp effect almost like in real time. There was no lag, there was no bit of like, and it sort of showed the actual pure power of it. So it's instances like that having an iPad Pro would certainly come into play. But again, with what you and I have been doing, we can achieve the same from either platform. So I had that. I haven't tried it out on this iPad yet because my purchase of this iPad has been like an interim thing because I was always going to be getting the iPad Pro. The thing is, I sold mine around March because I was expecting it to come out in June. But then it didn't come out in June, so I've been like iPad-less. I've just had this pencil sitting in my case.
In limbo sort of thing.
But anyway... Speaking of the actual pencil itself, how have you found the difference between holding the Cintiq stylus versus this? I mean, obviously there's a size difference, I'm guessing.
The initial changeover felt hard. Like my first, I'd say, day. I got used to it pretty quick, but the first day I was almost like, I don't know if I'm going to get used to this. Like it's way more sensitive than the Cintiq. Because my Cintiq was old. I don't know how old that thing is. It's got to be years old now. So this feels far more sensitive, but the Cintiq has some buttons on the pen itself, which I've never been a fan of. I've never used, because what I'm doing is cartooning, I've never really used it probably to its maximum capabilities. So I prefer it not having buttons on it. I think.
And what did out of interest? What did those buttons do?
You could set them. You could set them to what you want. So normally it was like a right click and things like that. Because you are on a computer, you have a right click. Yes, of course. But I never really used right click in Photoshop. Even using a mouse, I don't think you use it that often. So I just find it's a lot smoother. The screen itself on the iPad is so much nicer as well. It's so bright. The Wacom Cintiq's a bit dated, so it's a bit dull.
Yes. And so that's one factor, but then you come up against what a lot of people come up against with Apple Pencils, and that's the portability factor. It's like, where am I going to put this thing? You'd bought it, and one of the first things you asked me was, where do I put the pencil?
I don't want to break this pencil. It's the most expensive pencil.
So what are you currently doing to?
At the moment, I've just got like a over-the-shoulder bag, so there's a little pocket in it. And it's the only thing that goes in that pocket. I have ordered kind of like a little single pencil sleeve that slips over the case I've got at the moment, but it hasn't rocked up. And it's just a cheap one. It's to decide if I want to
And that's
spend money on
like
getting
an
a good one.
elastic surround.
It
sort of
looks
thing?
like it, yeah, an elastic surround with a little pouch on the front. And like I said, it is just a super cheap one, but it's more just to see if I want to spend that way and get a good version of that.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, Apple's offering of their iPad sleeve with the built-in holder is cool, but then that's a sleeve versus a case. The way they've designed it in terms of being able to hold it and then the sort of the lining of it to clean it is nice, but they are flipping expensive. So I doubt,
I was pretty surprised when I saw the price of the Apple case for it.
Yeah.
It'd be great. It'd be a great quality case. But the other thing is as well, that's why I'm trying this slip over case for the pencil because I like the iPad how I like them to be almost caseless.
Yes.
I don't want to not have a case on it because I want to protect it, but I don't want a big chunky case. I'm trying to get away from any extra bits.
Well, you should have seen me when I got the 10.5 iPad Pro.
Yeah.
So that was around June, July last year, and I hadn't sorted out what I was going to do with any form of case or anything. And I didn't even want to put it flat down on the table, and I would just rest it on the ridge of the box at Turner and use it that way. And I remember messaging Nick, and he's like, how's it going, that sort of thing. And I explained it, and he's one of those people that like, he's careful with his products, but he feels like you own it, you need to use it. And so he kind of like will put a bare iPad anywhere. I'm like, how could you just...
Oh, yeah, nah, not me.
I couldn't fathom that. And he's like, no, you need to... I'm like, no, I don't want to be walking around with any scratches or anything.
If anyone hands me an iPhone and I start to use it for some reason, I notice there's no case on it, I just have to give it back straight away.
Before I got my 10 and I had the 6S, I had skins on it. So that's like the slimmest... Slimmest thing you can get.
Never gone that slim,
But when I got the 10, I was just like... going to commit to no case because towards the end of
you are no case.
No, I've got a case now.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
But towards the end, I had one of the skins got damaged. I took it off and I was just like skinless, like completely bare 6S, right? And I got used to it over the course of a few months. The 10 came out and it's like glass back, steel sides, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, I'm going to commit to it. But because of the glass versus the aluminium before, it was extra slippery. Yeah. And all it took was for me. I was bending down to check something with the car tyre once, and I was on the driveway.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But I'd taken some car mats out or something. Something was next to me. And it just happened to be that I bent down, it slipped out my pocket, and like landed like glass side down on the mat. Oh. And I was just like,
this is a sign.
Oh, but this is a sign,
I've had my chance.
So, with so now I end up getting, this is one of Apple's leather cases, and I'm quite used to it. Even though it adds a bit around the side, the buttons are nice because these are actual metal buttons. Yeah, that's cool. So it feels quite good. But
it's a shame. They're such nice looking phones that you've got to put a case on them.
Yes, that is a shame, but I couldn't risk. I didn't want. Plus, I always have the whole resale value factor in my head. So, being an iPad. Completely portable. Have you actually taken advantage of that? Like,
I have, yeah.
Would you be drawing outside of this room?
Yeah, it's been awesome because obviously doing it on the Cintiq, I was always locked to the office here. So I'd be at work all day thinking about wanting to draw, and then when you get home, you kind of don't want to anyway. You've been thinking about it all day. So it's been great now. Go for a walk, been sitting, having lunch, drawing.
Cool.
Cool. Going to your Macs or whatever you use.
Wi-Fi,
watch Netflix on your phone or YouTube while you're drawing on the iPad. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's cool.
The iPad itself is a good experience with the drawing too, especially with your streaming services now. Like you can minimise them into a small screen and still draw while you're watching
your
favourite shows or whatever.
Cool.
So that's been sweet. Yeah.
That sounds good. Now that you've had this for a bit and you're used to that screen size, do you think down the line you'd be tempted to... Like, do you feel like the 12.9 would be too large?
I feel like I'd almost need to test it a little bit more. Because obviously the screen can feel small, but I zoom in so far when I draw anyway. Like I zoom right in to draw.
It's a good size to hold. I think like the 12.9 might be a bit cumbersome. Yeah. If you want to like, especially as you said, take it with you in the car or whatever.
And I go for a walk every lunch break, so I just chuck it in my bag. Where I feel like the big one, it's almost like I'd need to upgrade to like a backpack or like a full laptop style bag or something like that. And I think it's a good size. It's a comfortable size to watch.
Yeah. No, it's been good having a bit of a chat.
Yeah,
about the
hopefully
iPhone.
that's the information you
Unfortunately,
need.
in our small town, it can be a bit limited finding other people in the same ballpark. But
Yeah.
and finally, Cody / Sad C, the clown. Where can people find your work? Where are you most active?
Instagram's my main social media pipe, really. So SadC_ the clown. So SADC_ the clown on Instagram.
Yeah, certainly.
Come check it out.
But yeah, man, great to be having a chat, and
Awesome.
I'll check in at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Cool. My next guest is my co-worker and very good friend, Tim, also known as CheckingLocks. He's really into his audio production and has an absolute mammoth of a product in the form of iMac Pro. So let's not wait. Let's get into it. Good morning!
Oh no!
Oh, good evening. I'm sitting here with CheckingLocks, also known as BFF Tim. How are you on this crisp Albany post-daytime?
Yeah, quite crispy. It's a chilly one out.
We are transitioning to the springtime, so I'm hoping for some fun in the sun. But people may recognise Tim's work from our lush, reimagined theme music, which never gets old. Whoa-oh. Are you going to pound a case of Strohs?
Only like if I'm chilling with the bros. Is that the lyric?
I'm not sure, but what I am sure about is we do have a fancy beverage right here. So what are we drinking, Tim?
This is the Dainton Blood Orange New England IPA, or NEEP, as it's known in the crafty circles.
It is fruity and it is tasty. But we're not here to talk about craft beer as much as I'd like to. That is a whole podcast idea altogether. But we are here to talk to Tim about his top shelf powerhouse product, the iMac Pro. So, Tim, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Hell yeah, let's get into it.
Cool. Okay, first off the bat, before the iMac Pro, what did your studio setup consist of, and what type of work were you doing with it?
So before the iMac Pro, it consisted of just a PC tower I put together myself, as most people do when they're putting together a high-end rig. Primarily focused around high RAM, good graphics ability, basically building a gaming rig, but probably didn't have enough RAM in it. And also I had a aftermarket CPU cooler, which was just built towards making it low maintenance, not having to open the case too often to clean it.
Okay. So how long ago was this?
Ooh, going back a couple of years now. I actually can't remember when I first put it together. I've had it for a while, at least 3 to 4 years.
So you were talking about it being a gaming rig, but of course you're very skilled at and always talking about music production. So when did you kind of think, okay, I want to get serious with this setup and use it for music purposes?
Oh yeah, it was actually it was never actually built for gaming per se. It was just I built it to that spec because I knew that would give it
the cojones.
Yeah, exactly. Like the best possible specs. Yeah, like I said, apart from in the RAM department, I definitely should have gone higher in that. But like CPU and graphics card wise, it was more than enough for me. And also for photo editing and graphics sort of stuff, it definitely held up in that department.
Bit of an all-in-one Pro. But speaking of all-in-one, the iMac Pro has an all-in-one design. And so how long were we actually considering an upgrade? You know, what sort of, how long has this been simmering in your mind? Like, did you come across certain limitations or bottlenecks with the type of stuff you were doing?
I was considering getting an iMac Pro roughly 2 to 3 seconds after you finished explaining to me what it actually was. Yeah, that's pretty much when I first started considering that it could be for me because it was highly spec'd. And also, you know, I'd definitely become more accustomed to using Apple products. I used them like throughout TAFE when I was doing my certificates and diploma in interactive digital media. I certainly was familiar with the Mac OS, but definitely geared me more towards using it as my primary machine outside of work and study.
Okay, so in saying that, were you actually kind of hitting a wall with anything, like stuff involving maybe audio plugins and that sort of thing?
As I said before, because I definitely didn't go sounding like a broken record here right now, but yeah, definitely like in terms of RAM, I didn't spec that quite high enough on my original computer, and I was considering upgrading anyway, but because that had, you know, it was an old-ish rig, like I sort of built it at the tail end of DDR3 RAM, and to find a 32 gigabyte setup of that like would have been like a little bit difficult, and you know, I was considering just going with a whole new machine anyway. And yeah, like The screen also like definitely was something that won me over. Like I was starting to have a couple of my monitors die on me. So having that built into the computer and knowing that, you know, if that started happening within a warranty period, I'd definitely be covered. And I went with Apple Care as well, like when I went with the iMac Pro. So
definitely handy at that investment level.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of pricing, so considering the high price point, which is always staggering when you're explaining it to someone, not everyone has that cash money to spare. So did you actually take advantage of Apple financing or anything?
Yes, I did. So I could actually only borrow up to a certain amount, which was actually lucky in the end because I did have enough to pay the remainder. So I paid that part and then got the majority of it on financing, which has also, you know, made the repayments a lot more manageable than what I originally thought they would be.
With this being your first Mac, so as you said, you were familiar with the operating system back in the TAFE days, but you know, all these years later, you're actually owning one. How's the actual adjustment from Windows been? Because anyone who doesn't realize, Tim and I actually work together and we use Windows machines there. But yeah, how's that actual transition been? And were you able to continue using the same software that you had before?
Yeah, like it's pretty much exactly the same, especially with Adobe software like for Photoshop and Lightroom and that sort of thing. Like they've clearly got quite a storied history in terms of like working with both operating systems. So yeah, that wasn't really much of an issue. With Cubase, it was a little bit of an adjustment just in terms of how the Option and Command keys corresponded with Alt and Control in the Windows operating system. But yeah, like nothing a quick Google can't fix, or just just a look in a menu, like rather than just panicking, going, "Oh no,
oh no." What about the licensing part of it? Because you were explaining this the whole transition of the key
with a professional DAW nowadays, or digital audio workstation. I think I'm not actually that familiar with what the acronym means. I know it means the software I use.
I thought it was just the way you could describe gent riffs, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Like they usually use some sort of hardware licensing in terms of like protecting their product.
So it's a separate situation to the classic subscription login scenario, because this is you've just
but this is with a USB dongle. I was hoping to upgrade mine. That was when I found out that Cubase has a very specific one. It's not that easy to transfer licenses from one to the other because they use different encryption types.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just coming to terms with the fact that I had to not use the one that I'd invested in, you know, which isn't a huge expense, really, considering you've just forked out for an iMac Pro. Well, you know, paying it off in finance.
Yeah, that's fair. It's definitely a major leap to take, and I've actually let myself down that I didn't camp here like I promised when you first got it. I was meant to witness the unboxing firsthand, but you filmed it. That's cool. People may have seen that on our Apple Size accounts. Just while we're sticking on Cubase, have you in the past kind of gone through several different audio programs? Like what led you to Cubase, and how long have you been in that area for?
And this is something I probably actually have to like mention a little bit just in case people familiar with Cubase on iOS. Mac OS. Oh, did I just make a noob
Mac
move?
OS, that's fine. Actually, you said Mac OS. The new move would be OS X.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Of the renaming.
Oh, yeah, but saying iOS, isn't that like, you know, it wasn't that like the big no slam? You know, it's a bit controversial.
When Tim said iOS the first time, I looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I actually didn't realize what he meant.
Yeah,
that's all good. All good.
Yeah. I'm a Windows boy. Still at heart a little bit. Anyway,
that's fair enough. Hey, this is an Apple themed podcast, and everyone knows how passionate I am about it. But when I first started out at TAFE and I hadn't even owned a Mac, I was all like, "What can Macs do that PCs can't?" And I was all like, "Windows XP represent." So, you know, I can appreciate allegiance to platforms. Put it that way.
That's a controversial statement to make as the host, as the host of this podcast.
That being said, Windows equals trash can fire. But anyway, not really.
With the iMac Pro, like there actually has been a bit of like people trying it and basically actually having interruptions and that sort of thing. I actually haven't had that in my experience, although I'm not doing the same level of mixing that some people are. I certainly haven't had anywhere near the interruptions I used to have on my old Windows system, even though that was a lower hardware spec. Maybe I'm just adjusting to that, like the higher level of performance. But I was maybe expecting to have to switch again, but no, Cubase has held up just fine on an iMac Pro.
So were you ever a Pro Tools person before this?
I was, yes. Well, I didn't actually have full Pro Tools. I hadn't invested in that. That was
what was that one called?
LE, Light Edition.
Okay, yeah.
So before that, I used Reaper. I used the trial version of that. And then I got, as many people do, I bought my first sort of low input interface by Avid back when that was a thing. Yeah. With bundled sort of light edition of Pro Tools.
That's what I was trying to remember. So what was the actual that interface called? Was it like an Avid M?
Yeah, the Avid
M-Box?
M-Box. Yeah,
M-Box, that's it. Oh, this is bringing out so many memories. For people unaware, Tim and I have a musical history, so I am privy to the information of the different programs that he's used, but it's all coming back to me now, so it's a bit of a nostalgia trip. Bit of Audition back in the day?
Yeah. First starting out.
Any Cool Edit Pro? Did we go Cool Edit Pro?
No, Audacity.
Audacity, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, the freest of the freewares.
Yes.
Yep.
I've had the audacity to use that.
Punishing puns.
Yes. See, Tim sounds like he didn't appreciate that, but in real life, we are both puns for days. So, anyway, that's sidetracking a bit. We're talking about Cubase here. So, yeah, interesting that you mentioned that people were having some interruptions, but glad it's working out for you. Have you ever considered Apple's offering with Logic? I know that there's definitely Logic is actually quite up there in terms of having a strong community and bank of professional users.
I've definitely heard fantastic things about Logic. I just really like the organizational and like it's worth saying, I'm not a big name or anything, so I'm not being paid to say this by Steinberg or anything like that. But I've just I came to appreciate the organizational factors in Cubase. The way the interface works is very intuitive for me personally anyway. Because that would have been a big waste of money to just switch away from it, just have dead software there. Switching from Pro Tools wasn't that big of a deal because I didn't have the whole big version,
exactly.
The full version as such. So I was okay with that. But switching to Logic would have been a big decision to just leave this investment in Cubase sort of behind.
Yeah, plus the idea is it's you're familiar with it and you haven't actually had any reason to not use it.
Yeah, exactly. And switching licenses was an absolute breeze, just swapping over the dongle. Like I said, I just didn't get to switch over to a different one, but that's fine.
Cool. Okay, speaking of actually using the software, are there any particular tasks or loads or any sort of activity that is noticeably faster here than compared to previously?
Yeah, definitely. I'd basically just moved a whole bunch of files into one large session for mixing an album. Just before I switched computers, which may seem like a silly decision, but whatever. I did it. When I switched over, opening that session in Cubase on the better machine was just absolutely astounding.
Nice.
Just no playback problems at all. Because it's a mixing session, you don't have to worry about latency or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You're just going for the best possible quality playback. And yeah, it was absolutely crazy, the difference in switching.
And that's basically the thing is that people investing in these high level machines, particularly if you work in a studio or this is your full-time thing, it's those ways that you can save time and save the frustration and save the stress and that thing that actually make it worth the investment. And speaking of things that you actually had ordered, you got both the trackpad and the mouse. So do you actually have a preference or do they each have their own use?
Yeah, I have preferences for different tasks, basically. In navigating my DAW, Cubase, it's just I prefer the trackpad over any mouse I've ever used. It's just very, very easy to navigate things. I had to set the sensitivity quite high because it's just what I'm used to with a mouse, in terms of moving things large distances, especially across this spectacular screen that I now have at my disposal. But I definitely actually still favor the mouse in photo editing, like in terms of moving sliders around and that kind of thing. I don't know. It just feels more natural to me. I feel like I'm in a bit more control.
Yeah, I can certainly vouch for that because with my MacBook Pro, obviously much smaller screen and a very large trackpad. Certainly, some people say comically large, but I still use the Magic Mouse for a lot of things I'm doing, particularly when it comes to vector or photo editing and stuff like that. So yeah, there's just that bit more control. But I feel like if you were kind of like stuck, if there was no option, you would kind of master the trackpad and all the different kind of gestures and stuff. But I'm a big fan of the mouse too. So high five.
That was so cheesy.
So cheesy, but I'm super excited because we
it.
could actually high five in real life, whereas normally I can't exactly high five from here to Melbourne when talking to Nick. The Tower. Not just a disappointing movie based on a book, but how is life without a tower now?
Yeah, it's definitely allowed me to clean up the space that I work in a lot more, like quite into organizing a physical space quite well. And yeah, not having the tower there has definitely made a huge difference to neatening up cables, like little things like that, just that may seem nitpicky in terms of organization, but they actually do, in terms of isolating an issue. Like if you don't have to go around things that have had to go a particular way because they're routed around a tower because of noise or whatever, it's definitely been fantastic to ditch that. Although, yeah, like I said, I had an aftermarket cooler in there, so I didn't really have to open it to dust it that often because it was using a heatsink. But that was, it's very nice to have it just all in the system, and it still kind of trips me out a little bit.
The announcement came out, the release. We actually just came out the cinemas when the release announcement hit. I do remember that. And it was like, yep, I'm going to do it. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And it was back and forth for a while. And you finally took the plunge, and I was super excited. But I do remember one of your initial questions, because of your knowledge with things like the cooling and obviously having custom built towers and stuff before, was basically just that slim body design and then the actual cooling. So there was that level of kind of like, can I trust it or not? And I certainly can understand that, considering where you previously had been coming from. So man, I'm glad they actually did take the plunge, and I'm also glad that it's has remained cool and it hasn't caught fire.
As soon as I saw the diagram on their website, I don't know, something about just a well put together website space. Just definitely
and a little cool animation.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about selling us to an Eskimo. In that case, I was definitely the Eskimo, and happy to be.
Yes, nice. Curveball, you're a passionate photographer. So have you actually done much in the way of image editing on this machine? And I'd imagine that the 5K display probably helps.
Not as much as I would like to, but I definitely have edited photos on it. And it's just been, in terms of being confident in what I'm doing, it's absolutely fantastic, especially with sharpening, and that sort of thing. If you've edited a photo on a display of this sort of pixel density, if it looks good on this, if it doesn't look over sharpened or oversaturated or anything like this, if it looks quite neutral on a Mac display, and this is something I've known since using just a regular iMac back in TAFE, it's going to look good anywhere. And rather than having to bounce it to my phone through Dropbox, download it, have a look at that. Oh, it's oversaturated. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh. Better do it again and all that, and then upload it and, get... It just makes those 2 likes and potentially 1 heart react if you're lucky just so much more fulfilling to not have to to go through as much rigmarole for it.
Not that life depends on social media reactions, but in this day and age, people certainly do hold that on a high pedestal. I've always held a lot of confidence and love for Apple displays. And even just when we get back to work, saying we've got kind of dual monitors, even within the same brand, and they look different, and you're trying to make the settings to make them look the same, it's just kind of like, man, I'm a big fan. That's why I created this podcast. Okay, switching back to the music, with the music side of things, what are you currently working on? And where can listeners find your work?
Got a couple of things in the pipeline. outside of just working in computers, I'm currently trying to bring my solo sort of instrumental music that I perform under the moniker CheckingLocks
Nice.
to the live stage through MIDI programming and whatnot.
I'll be there.
Thanks, man. Other than that, like actually in recording realm, the main project I've had on for quite a while is I'm in a sort of atmospheric punk band called TIE Fighters. That's the album I mentioned before. I've been recording that, and like that is getting so close to having all the pieces there to finish. I'm not saying it's going to be necessarily finished overnight, but it's all the pieces are nearly there, and that's been a long time coming and a lot of hard work from every member of the band. All the members, every member, everyone in the band, like, you know, has really come together over time to put that together. So getting that out there is going to be pretty great.
To be honest, I think any form of music producer has always had that first album story. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're putting yourself in the space of, hey, you know, this is what I'm serious about, this is what I'm passionate about, you're going to, the process of having a first album is probably going to drag out longer than you would like. But I think, I'm really looking forward to hearing it. Tim has played me snippets, sounding very good. And there is a case of, one of the members lives far away, so there is all that too. But hey, man, I'm glad that with all the amazing microphone gear, all the amazing array of pedals, and having you known for this long, and being kind of the designated production guy all this time, it is so awesome for you to actually have progressed through to the stage of, hey, here's actually a entirely Tim Karamir produced album. So yes, insert clapping sample. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Looking forward to getting it out there once it's done.
I'm waiting for your massive sigh of it's done. So. All right, man. Thanks for having a chat about the very sensual and attractive iMac Pro that I'm staring at right in front of me, and may not be within this household by the time we finish recording.
Thanks for having me on. And
I did promise so many times. I'm like, man, I've got to get you on the podcast. Got to get on the podcast. And it's actually happened, so that's an achievement within itself.
I hope everyone in the Mac and recording worlds can forgive my mumbling and stuttering and whatnot.
Oh, no, dude, totally fine. I mean, have you listened to the first episode of Apple Slice? Man, we had zero experience. I listen back now, I'm like, cringeworthy. But yeah, thanks, man, and I'll catch you at work, on a plane, in a bar, or all of the above.
Yes.
Catch you later.
All right, see ya.
And lastly, returning to Apple Slice, we have Ty from the podcast Post. It really hasn't been long since he was on here last time with our WWDC wishlist episode, and he's dropping in real quick to talk about his Apple Watch Series 3. I'd like to welcome Ty Shattuck from the podcast Post back to Apple Slice. How's it going, man?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you going?
It is absolutely flown by since our last episode. I can't believe that was the last main event when we did our wishlist episode, and now we're on the cusp of another major event.
That's right. Looking forward to September.
I mean, not everything on our wishlist was fulfilled, but certainly a decent amount. So I was relatively happy with that. But what about yourself?
It wasn't one of those events where I went wow. But yeah, definitely a few good things in there.
Nice. Just ticking some boxes. Okay,
Yeah.
So the funny thing about this is that when we recorded last time, it had been just days since you were in the US, right? And then now when we record now, it's days before I leave for the US. So some sort of weird alignment of the planets and such.
Yeah, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we are here to get your feedback on which device?
The Apple Watch Series 3.
Nice. All right, are you ready to get into this with some quick questions?
Sure am.
Cool. Okay, so you've been an Apple Watch user since some of the earlier days. So what model did you have back then? And then when and why did you actually decide to upgrade to Series 3?
I actually got the first generation. So as soon as it was available online to order, a friend of mine at work and I both jumped on and ordered one, and we got it delivered straight to work because we didn't want to have to wait till we got home.
Okay.
And I've been using that ever since. I skipped, Series 1, Series 2, and spent a long time looking at Series 3 and never really really jump ship because I was waiting for maybe a new design to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until after the announcement earlier this year about the new Watch OS that I found out that they probably weren't going to be making any more updates to the first generation.
Yes.
So I was going to be missing out. So I tried to justify a change and just went to the Apple Store one day and did it.
Nice. I think that the further they go on with these releases, you know, the Apple Watch is coming so far each time. Like the Series 3, the current one, is so much further ahead than the original, right? So I think that the further they get ahead and the more they refine it, the actual backwards compatibility of the software will go further back. I just think that given the differences between the original model and then this one, it wasn't a surprise to me that they dropped support with WatchOS 5. But so I guess, yeah, that in itself was the deciding factor for you.
Yeah, and I mean, they've done it with phones as well. Eventually, they've just got to stop releasing new software for the older devices. It just won't work properly. And it pushes people to upgrade, I guess.
I was thinking more about the instance of the fact that iOS 12 is supported on every single device that iOS 11 is supported on. So it's kind of like they're not shifting at the same amount of kind of number of devices they support. So the fact that they were able to extend it by another year and still retain those oldest devices is cool.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I'm kind of getting at with Watch. I think, you know, say come a Watch Series 7 or something, that perhaps the 3 or the 4 will still include whatever OS is out at the time. But the actual device itself, what color and model did you get?
I got the black. I know it's a sports edition, I think, just the black sports, or aluminium, however you want to pronounce it. And previously I had the silver, and okay. I must admit I should have gone for the black from the start. I'm really happy with the color choice on this one.
Very nice. Between the original and this one, what are the most obvious differences that you've noticed?
It has to be battery life.
Okay.
I used to have to charge my series or first generation every night, you know, without fail. And I guess that was just a habit that I got into anyway. But since having this one, I can go a couple of days
same.
without having to charge it. And, you know, in those instances where you're traveling or you just don't, you know, have an Apple charger or watch charger around.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely comes in handy. What else has...
I'm guessing things like the actual speed of the actual operating system and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Especially from what is it, 4 years ago? Mm-hmm. The original one came out. So yeah, there's hardly any lag, when I open up, different apps. And even just in invoking Siri.
Yes.
Is much better. And now you can hear her speak if you want to. I choose not to, but, yeah, that's another change that I've noticed as well.
Okay. So did the model you get have the cellular option?
It did, yes.
And have you taken any advantage of that yet with your carrier with any sort of free offer or anything?
Yeah, so I signed up. I'm with Optus, and I signed up for. I think they offer 6 months. I think it's 6 months free, and it's only $5 a month after that, I believe. And look, I haven't taken full advantage of it. I'm not a huge fitness person. I suppose that's where it would come in most handy. Needing to leave the phone at home, but even in the office, I've got a work mobile phone and a personal. And, you know, when I'm around the office and I've got the work phone, I can leave my personal one at my desk, and I can still get my personal messages and emails come through on the watch. So that's where I found it most useful so far.
In my situation, it's the reason I switched from Virgin to Optus, because they just weren't supporting it. And I did that, and I did the number share straight away. And in actual use, in terms of when I find myself using it, it is pretty much restricted to just if I go out for a walk. And sometimes I take my phone along, particularly with the podcast playback sort of things, because up until WatchOS 5, that's always been a bit of an issue for the watch. But certainly for music streaming, that's been pretty cool. I still think that they could refine how you can search for music because it's Siri only, there were certain situations where it was just getting an album title wrong and that sort of thing. And I was like, I wish I could say use Scribble or something to search for it. So that would have been good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to have. There have been times where I've just been like, oh, cool, I can just completely leave my phone at home, say particularly if it's on a weekend and you could head into town, head whatever, and you got just your watch. And there is that sort of liberating feeling about it. Obviously, you can do so much more on your phone, but if you just want to kind of tune out and you're happy to just respond to messages or have a call if you need to, then that's cool. And I also think, the $5 a month is definitely worth that peace of mind with, okay, what if something happened to your phone? What if you'd lost your phone? What if you found yourself in an emergency situation, you couldn't access your phone, all that sort of stuff. So while I hope that doesn't happen to me, it's good to know that at least the watch can help me out.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's phone runs out of battery at times.
Yes, exactly.
And I found myself trying to scramble to find a charger. And yeah, with this watch, you don't necessarily have to panic about it.
I certainly think Australians get the better deal with the cost for it because in America it's like $10 American a month for like number share. And over here we had like free intro offers and then $5 Australian a month. So yeah, certainly get a better deal here with our carriers.
Yeah, and overall the mobile plans here are pretty good lately with the unlimited calls and text, and the data's getting better.
Yes, exactly.
They're a lot more competitive now.
We just need better coverage. So
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of things that go with the watch, have you ever done the classic AirPods and watch combo? Just completely without the phone?
Not completely without the phone, but I do find that on public transport on the way to work, I do control my music from the watch.
Yes,
while wearing the AirPods. No, I haven't really used it independently, just with the watch. But I do find it handy leaving my phone in my bag and then just lifting my wrist and turning the volume up and down. And I've changed the gestures on the AirPods to skip tracks.
I certainly find the now playing screen, now that especially it's more accessible, particularly with WatchOS 5 as well, it is just easily one of the things I use the most on my watch. Because literally, the great thing is you don't have to have, there doesn't have to be a watch app equivalent. Like it's literally just, it'll come up and, say you're listening to something in Overcast or whatever, and you can control it and skip back and forth. And just having the crown as the volume control, I use it all the time. So yeah, definitely love it for that.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the podcast app in WatchOS 5? Like, would that give you a reason to kind of leave the phone behind, actually make use of the cellular?
Possibly. I'm excited for the app itself. I think it's great that they're recognizing that it's a feature that people will use. Mm-hmm. Whether or not I use it, if I decide one day to hit the gym, which I probably should, then in those situations, then yeah, definitely.
And the good thing is with the changes in WatchOS 5 is that people like Marco, the guy who created Overcast, is that he's like just straight up using the watch developer kit, and over almost the course of a weekend, he was able to get the watch app back to sort of how he envisioned it in terms of actual proper streaming player, and I'm really excited for that. So the bummer, but for you and I, is us not having developer accounts, is that we haven't actually been able to take advantage of any of the features yet. So it's going to be, we're both running the iOS beta, but certainly with WatchOS 5, it's going to be a bit of a, hey, cool, here are all these features that we got to see several months ago.
Yeah, it's always a risk running the beta on the watch, though, even if you've got a developer account.
Yeah, like the initial bricking and everything.
Yeah,
a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, now with Series 4 having a rumoured larger screen and maybe even a solid-state side button, were you ever caught between, okay, do I wait it out or do I just bite the bullet and get the 3?
I feel that way every time I buy an Apple product. When is the new one coming? 6 months, 12 months? Do I wait? Look, it would have to be a pretty major design to make me want to switch. If it's the same design with just a larger screen, I'm pretty happy with the way it is.
Yep.
But who knows?
Pretty much everything is pointing to that. So I'm happy with the screen size as it is. Yeah. And while when I got my Series 1, I said, I'm not going to upgrade for a few years. I did upgrade immediately as soon as Series 3 came out. But yeah, I just think that, I mean, the main thing for me back then was to do with chip performance and stuff, right? So yeah, they're going to have to, in terms of the rumors that we've seen, they'd have to pull out something else for me to really want to switch over, but I can guarantee that Nick will upgrade because he's a fiend for watches. He's been through like 7 of them or something.
Yeah, and if he uses it, really uses it, and from what I've heard, he really uses Siri a lot. And having Siri on the wrist, I'm sure comes in handy. But yeah, I mean, I think they've got the design pretty right the first time. I think it's just like the AirPods. They came out pretty much perfect. I really liked the design, and I think that's why we haven't seen a major change, because there's not much they can do with it except maybe make it a little bit thinner and increase the screen size. Yeah. But then I'm not too fussed about the thickness of it purely because of the battery life that you get out of it. So
yeah, I think they pulled off that balance between it being having to be a certain thickness to be functional, as well as being stylish. Like, it doesn't look like a house arrest bracelet or anything. So, and it still is, you know, while people kind of scoffed at it initially because it wasn't circular, I look at circular smartwatches now after having lived with the Apple Watch for so long and appreciate it so much that when I see the circular Android smartwatches, I'm like, like there's always something a bit tacky about it, but I don't know. Maybe
and you see them everywhere now.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, definitely common. Okay. That's been a quick little wrap up. Any last thoughts on the watch, or I guess really it's just WatchOS 5 for us both?
That's right. And I'm looking forward to trying a walkie-talkie.
Oh, yes, definitely. I haven't been able to try that obviously because of beta and like Nick being on beta and me not. So I'll as soon as it comes out, I'm going to send you one.
Yeah, cool. It'll be a phase, but yeah, I'm looking forward to playing around with it.
No worries. Thanks for dropping in real quick and letting us know about your Series 3. For new listeners who are unaware of the podcast post, quickly, what is it about and where can they find you?
It's 3 social accounts. So it's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I post about podcasts that I like, podcast recommendations that come through. And moving towards, equipment recommendations for new podcasters out there. Yep. And on all 3 accounts, it is the podcast post.
Excellent. And also, if you are a podcaster and you want to get yourself in front of Ty's increasing amount of followers, he also has a Patreon set up so you can become part of his Instagram stories and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, it certainly really has felt quick since that last episode, but always great to have you on, and I'd love to hear what you think after the event, and possibly whether you... I'd be extremely surprised if you caved and got a Series 4 at this point, but...
you never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
Exactly. All right, man, thanks for that, and I'll catch you later.
No worries, thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Vox Pip. You can find Apple Slice on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or subscribe in your player. You can check us out and other great podcasts at AuscastNetwork.com. That's AUSCAST network.com. You can definitely get more of Apple Slice at our website, appleslice.com.au. So I'll catch you all next week for episode 58.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.